Hey guys, this is Bob Frecking of Yugatech, and we have here the ASUS Zenfone 3 Zoom, which we will stack up against the iPhone 7 Plus in an all-out camera comparison. For the camera specs, the ASUS Zenfone 3 Zoom has dual 12-megapixel sensors with 25mm f1.7, while the other one has a 59mm f2.6. While the iPhone 7 Plus has dual 12-megapixel cameras too, one at 28mm f1.8 and 56mm f2.8. The ASUS Zenfone 3 Zoom has a much lower aperture, so this means the camera lets in more light. Also, these dual camera setups allow for features like zooming and other effects, so let's test them out. So as you can see here, the ASUS Zenfone 3 Zoom takes the shot with a cooler temperature outdoors, while the iPhone 7 Plus tends to be warmer. This means the Zenfone captures photos that are more bluish, while the iPhone tends to go more reddish. The Zenfone also tends to brighten up highlights and darken up shadows, resulting in higher contrast photos at the cost of losing details on whites and blacks. It also gets the brighter shots done by amping up the ISO and increasing exposure. The iPhone, on the other hand, tends to process photos at lower exposure levels and lower ISO, meaning you won't get overblown lights and there's less noise and more detail. This is all evident when you shoot outdoors where there are areas that are well lit and there are some prominent shadows. The story is pretty much similar when you zoom in using the other lens and when you zoom all the way to 10x. However, when you get to 10x, the Zenfone gets to be the slightly warmer photo. With high dynamic range or HDR, the Zenfone lifts the details of the highs and the lows of the photo, resulting in a bright and vibrant image. The iPhone, on the other hand, is very conservative and keeps the higher contrast. Take both cameras slowly indoors and you'll see the differences in post-processing better. From afar, they look very similar, but zooming in, the Zenfone tends to favor having a smoother and softer image, while the iPhone tends to sharpen. This means the Zenfone will take better looking photos with blurred backgrounds and gradients like skies, while the iPhone will show more detail on subjects and intricate designs. Again, the differences in color temperature, brightness, and contrast levels are apparent. Both phones have the feature built into their camera apps to take photos with more bokeh. Both do it very well but very differently. The bokeh on the Zenfone is done brighter and doesn't need to zoom 2 times, while the iPhone's bokeh is more muted. As we dive deeper into the night, the nature of these 4 cameras become their most extreme. You can see that zoomed out, both of these do almost equally well, but zoom in closer and you'll see that the Zenfone is a little brighter, due to the high ISO. Again, this means the camera is more sensitive to light but at the expense of more noise. Like we said, the iPhone favors having a darker shot for less noise. There's not much more to say except that using the flash creates a similar scenario, cooler on the Zenfone, warmer on the iPhone. Finally, the selfie cameras do the opposite. The iPhone tends to be brighter while the Zenfone captures more like the background behind me. To summarize, the Zenfone 3 Zoom produces cooler photos with higher contrast and warmer photos zoomed in. Higher exposure and ISO for brighter shots even with bokeh, and smoother textures good for capturing gradients. For $23,995, you can get the ASUS Zenfone 3 Zoom already, bundled with JBL Clip 2 Bluetooth speakers, ASUS Zen-Ear, and an ASUS Clear case, which is almost half the price of the $44,990 Apple iPhone 7 Plus. Ultimately, the ASUS Zenfone 3 Zoom is a great alternative for the iPhone for its much lower price and the included freebies. This is especially the case if you appreciate bright photos full of contrast, which you can get for half the cost.